So we'll just go ahead and start. Everybody, good morning and welcome to Kigali Foreign Affairs Council. We're very excited for our conversation today with the CEO's Council. This is our business community event, and we have a wonderful moderator and a wonderful speaker, which I'm very excited about that. Before we start, I want to remind you two things. We're on the record, which means our conversation will be recorded until when we start questions and answer. We'll go back off the record. So you could ask your questions at the last 10 minutes of our conversation. So I'm asking everybody, please send your questions as we go through our discussions, and we'll try to get them in the last 10 minutes. Second, I always forget this. I want to say thank you to our team for helping us put this together. Sharon, Adam, and Estelle, thank you very much. I apologize, sometimes I forget to say thank you to them. So thank you for our team here to help us put in this amazing event here. I want to welcome all our CEOs joining us. I see some of them from bank, the finance community, and telecommunication. And also I want to say thank you to ambassadors joining us. I see Ambassador Ron, Ambassador Israel to Rwanda, and some three German, I see, other ambassadors joining us. Anyway, thank you very much for all for joining us. So without taking long, I want to welcome Julienne, the CEO of Africa Entrepreneur Collective, and Inhomoko. And please, the floor is yours. Please let's jump in the conversation. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Yannick. Thank you so much for having me. Marc, it's great to meet you. I look forward to a fantastic conversation. First, let me start off by saying congratulations. I saw Bank of Kigali won Global Finance Bank of Rwanda recently, so it's really nice to be able to chat with you after that honor. And you know, because we have just a few minutes, I have about 5 questions for you. And then, as Yannick said, we'll get to questions from the group. But first, I just want to start off with a question on leadership. You know, your career has really involved leadership from so many different sectors: banking, governance, education, advisor to presidents. Did you always want to go into leadership, even from a young age? And then how do you think about evolving your leadership today, even with such a deep, experienced career?
Well, first of all, Julienne, thank you so much. And I appreciate you having me today. And thank you for that question. When you think of leadership, I'm always amazed in life how many people, not even thinking they do, have such wonderful leadership capabilities. I mean, people can be leaders in different ways. I mean, they can make a difference in so many different forums, on so many different platforms. In my own case, I don't know that I always aspired to positions of leadership, but I will say that I was the beneficiary of some wonderful mentors and some great people in my life, from my father to my early days working as a young man in the first campaign of President Ronald Reagan, and to others like Drew Lewis, who was his transportation secretary, to Lou Lehrman, who was the president and co-founder of Rite Aid drugstores, and people like the late Richard Fox, one of the most prominent businessmen in America. And I had the privilege of learning different things that the person I am, but most importantly, instilled in me a sense of contributing and giving back, and the sense of reward and satisfaction that you get from doing that type of work.
Yeah, so it seems like, you know, even with the variety of sectors, it doesn't sort of matter sort of the values of leadership, of service, of having the opportunities to learn from mentors, and then to give back in the way you can, is really sort of a common thread. How do you see sort of continuing to evolve your leadership even today? Are you studying leaders? Are you practicing different sort of schools of thought? What does that look like now?
So interesting you ask. I have 3 books on my desk right now by the noted author Paul Johnson. He's a British historian. And one prepared for this, but I'm rereading his book called Creators, and it profiles people like Walt Disney and Steve Jobs and others. And the second in his series is called Heroes, you know, leaders that have really made a difference in the world. The third book, incidentally, is called Intellectuals, and it talks about how so many people that are often admired as being intellectuals have actually done some really destructive things to society and the world, especially in the 20th century. But when I think of leaders, Julienne, the one person who stands out more than any other is President Kagame, because of what he has done to lead by example, to lead with empathy, and to lead with heart, and how he not only saved Rwanda and transformed the country, but rebuilt the country. My own path to Rwanda was not one I would have expected. In 2004, I was president of the University of Denver. President Kagame came on the 10th anniversary of the horrific genocide to make a major foreign policy address. And we happened to meet and developed a friendship. We stayed in touch. We saw each other at the World Economic Forum in Davos from time to time. And then several years later, in 2008, I went back to banking, becoming vice chairman of Barclays based in London. And the first call I got, there was a tiny article buried in the second section of the London Financial Times. The first call I got was from President Kagame. And at first, my secretary actually thought it was a prank call. Fortunately, we took it seriously. The president asked me to come to Rwanda and to give him some advice on the banking sector. And, you know, fast forward nearly 13 years later, you know, I'm very proudly serving as chairman of
Yeah, Mark, it cut out for me just a little bit on that last one where I lost you saying proudly serving as chairman of Bank of Kigali.
Yeah, Bank of Kigali. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's great. Yeah, thank you for that. I think that we can draw so many lessons of leadership, you know, from so many different people, and President Kagame is certainly just an exemplar in a fantastic leader that we can all learn from, you know, continuing to today. Shifting gears a little bit, you know, right now we're more than a year into the COVID-19 pandemic, and this pandemic has been completely devastating. But with vaccine rollout, there's optimism and hope that things might be under control. Are you optimistic about the next couple of years, or is the road to recovery really going to be a lot longer and harder than we hope?
So I would say this, I'm more optimistic than ever before, and I'm an optimistic person by nature. But something happened in the world in the last year, and it almost kind of leveled the playing field in a way that countries like Rwanda and other countries with visionary leaders and great policies will be able to move forward faster and better and stronger and more expeditiously than ever before. I mean, I'll give you several examples. I look at Bank of Kigali. We're Rwanda's largest financial institution. We're very proud of that fact. We work every day not only to maintain our position, but hopefully grow and expand our market share and our product offerings. But we knew even before the pandemic that if we were going to be successful, that if we were going to be able to differentiate ourselves from our competitors and potential competitors, and in this environment, our competitors, by the way, are not only banks, they're mobile telephone companies, they're payment service providers, they're companies like Alibaba and Amazon and you name it. We knew, Julienne, that if we were going to be successful, that we were going to have to digitally transform ourselves. Miklos Dietz, who's the head of banking strategy years ago, the bank will change the next years, and it has in the last 300. So when I look at Rwanda, and to answer your question specifically, the opportunities are absolutely enormous. They're across the board. And, you know, I see basically 5 pillars for Rwanda looking forward. I'm happy to discuss those, where we as a country can not only take a leadership position, but can accelerate at a faster rate maybe ever before, certainly ever would have been considered than in a pre-COVID era. And I think what COVID has done is it's accelerated the process of reform, of digitalization, of transformation, not by desire, but by necessity. And countries like ours, like Rwanda, and I say that I'm a very proud citizen of Rwanda as well, a naturalized citizen, we're in a unique position to seize market share and to prevail and to come out of this even stronger.
So what, it sounds like going into COVID, you already had the digitization plan, and that COVID just really accelerated the strategy that you were already working. What does the next 3 years of acceleration look like? Are there any other benefits that came out of COVID that you and the team were able to identify to take it to even the next level?
I would say if there was one benefit, our amazing executive team led by Dr. Diane Karasisi identified very early on with the full support of the board that we needed to, if anything, even expand the pace of our digitalization. And in doing so, we have outperformed every goal and every expectation we set even for ourselves. So we're feeling, we still have a lot of work to do. I'm feeling very good about things right now.
That sounds like quite a number of reasons to be optimistic. And I think right now we could all use a little bit of hope these days. And it's just great. It's just great to hear that. That we have leaders on this call from a variety of sectors. What global trends should we be paying attention to right now, sort of regardless of industry? And what impact do you think that will have on all of our work in Rwanda?
Thank you. Well, I think the biggest global trend we should be looking at right now is pent-up demand. I believe, for one, that even though the world has suffered, and even though we're coming through a horrible chapter, that now that the world is being vaccinated, and now that we're clearly on the road to recovery, we can see light at the end of the tunnel. We are in a unique position now to move forward. And when we do, I'm thinking of, there's a pent-up demand for travel, for natural resources, for services across the board. And, I was suggesting earlier, I think Rwanda has number one is the, of course, without saying more, the human capital, the quality of our people, the way under President Kagame's leadership, we're educating this nation. The fact that Carnegie Mellon is producing 42 MBAs every year in Rwanda with Carnegie Mellon degrees, not Carnegie Mellon Rwanda degrees. The wonderful work that Dale Dawson and Tom are doing at Bridge to Rwanda. We've hired a lot of people out of that program, and they're all amazing. Pacifique, Emmanuel Behizi, others that are just, the future leaders of the country. But if I were to say, where can Rwanda differentiate itself? We're in the process of becoming a global financial center. President Kagame laid out this vision. The Minister of Finance, the Governor of the Central Bank, everybody's on board to make this happen. Important. Natural resources. We have abundant supplies of tin, tantalum, and tungsten. I believe in Francis Guattari's vision of exponentially increasing our exports to billions of dollars a year, not just several hundred million where we are now. And by the way, it's thought that we have resources of lithium, of gold that haven't even been explored or developed. Agriculture. When I became chairman of Bank of Kigali, agricultural lending was about 6% of bank lending. Agriculture is 30% of the economy. And I'm really proud that under Dr. Karasisi's leadership, we've significantly closed that gap through our iCoffee platform, where farmers can digitally take advantage of all of the services that we have to offer. Four is tourism. Rwanda is uniquely positioned now. The luxury lodges, the affordable hotel market, all across the board, nature tourism, ecological tourism, historical tourism, it's all here. And then in general, Julienne, services. We have yet to exploit the focus and the commitment and the dedication of Rwanda's amazing workforce. And I believe that you're going to see a major pillar of the service sector of, take shape in Rwanda over the next years. But all of this will be accelerated because of COVID.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, but I also could not have said it as articulately and comprehensively as you. So thank you for those insights. So I run an organization and we work with micro and small businesses, offering business consulting services to help get businesses ready for growth. And one of the things that we did recently was we hosted our annual staff retreat, and we invited leaders from a variety of industries to come and give their perspectives. And the theme of the event was becoming world-class. And this allowed speakers to talk about sort of what characteristics it takes to become world-class, what is defined as world-class, because I think depending on where you are, those definitions might be different. But then also looking at examples, people and places, and how we can aspire to be people who, and those that are already world-class. What examples should the rest of the world be looking at Rwanda in order for globally we can become world-class?
Well, thank you. First of all, I'm really delighted Yannick mentioned that my friend Ambassador Ron Adam is joining us today. If you look at world-class, look at how Rwanda has set up an amazing relationship with Israel in biochemistry and agrosciences, in almost all aspects of trade. And if you want to look further into the idea of world-class, you only need to look at Rwanda being routinely referred from Bloomberg to Dow Jones as the Switzerland or the Singapore of Africa. And I think both analogies are correct. I've often said somewhat lightheartedly that Rwanda is really, kind of Africa light for Americans and Europeans and others that aren't really ready for, to look at, the core of Africa today. I mean, it's truly an island of tranquility, of stability, free of corruption, of entrepreneurial dynamism, of a people that want to succeed and thrive and achieve. And in many ways, thanks to President Kagame's amazing leadership, Africa is benefiting and modeling it. I believe that the rest of Africa over the next decade or two is going to become more like Rwanda than vice versa.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I would also even just take it one step further, that it's not just the rest of the continent, but that it's so many other regions and countries in the world that should be looking to Rwanda to improve in our own ways. But I think, it's a phenomenal place to work, and it's a phenomenal place to contribute. And there's so much learnings that we can do regardless of industry. We're about to pass it over to the audience, but if I could just slip in one final question from me. What's the best advice you've ever gotten on how to grow your career?
Somebody once told me, and I've repeated this many times in my various experiences, when you're working, whether you're working or whether it's a passion, try to do three things. It's a very noble thing to want to make money, to want to be profitable, to want to be successful, and to, by the way, to share that success. Have fun. Sometimes people take themselves too seriously. So it's really important that even though we know we're doing serious work, that we not take ourselves too seriously. And then thirdly, do well for others. And I think when you do well for others, even if you're not planning to, you do good for yourself. A rising tide lifts all boats. And that was some of the best advice that I've ever been given, and I try to live my life by every day.
And at what point in your career did you get that advice? Was that early enough to benefit, or?
I received it pretty early on. It came from President Reagan. in the 1980s, I was one of the youngest people on his team, and I'm very grateful for that influence and that inspiration in my life.
Yeah, I'm sure that has served you well in a variety of positions that you've had. Yannick, I'm going to pass it over to you to make sure we can get some good questions. So I'm going to go on mute.
Excellent. All right. That was wonderful, Marc. We have questions coming in. Oh, I want to also welcome Dr. Diane. She joined us. Thank you, Dr. Diane, Steel Bank Kigali, for joining us also. And we have 29 Steels joining us. So I really appreciate everybody who came in. So our first question comes from Manzi. His question says, a strong private sector is key to the development of Africa and Rwanda. What are one or two things that has to happen or reforms need to take place on the continent for us to start seeing this?
Well, thank you. It's an excellent question. I would say that, President Kagame is one of the architects, if not the architect, of the African Free Trade Agreement. And where it's being implemented, we're already seeing tremendous upside and advantages. But I believe that we will see even more in the coming years.